Good morning, All Saints. It is good to be here. It is good to be here. This is one of the highlights of the year for us here at All Saints Church. An annual visit from our dear friend Ken Turan of the Los Angeles Times. And he is a fixture in this community, and he is a fixture in the life of our community. And every now and then he will say something that is so profound that literally alarm bells will go off. And so if that happens, please just stay in your seat and just really ponder the wisdom that he has given us. And really, I absolutely know you're not here to see me. I know we're here to have a lot of fun and learn a lot about movies. So please join me in welcoming Ken Turan.
Well, thank you, my God. Never know what to expect from an introduction at All Saints. But really, you know, I say this every year, but I feel it more deeply every year. I really feel like it's such a privilege to be able to come here and speak here to an intelligent, enthusiastic, committed audience. I mean, I think when I started doing this, I had no idea I'd be doing it for so long. It's like so much in your life, you say, am I still doing that? But it really means an enormous amount to me to be able to come every year. I enjoy it, and I really, you know, I'm hopeful every year that, you know, I'll say things that make you won't say, boy, next year I'm just going to sleep in. You know, I'm going to miss that. So I just wanted to say, you know, just a couple of things before I take questions. As you know, just kind of taking questions is, you know, kind of what I'm all about here. I think I mentioned this film last year. I wanted to put in a brief film for a brief plug for a film I'm really passionate about, a documentary that's long gone from theaters, but it is now available on DVD and streaming and however else you get it. It's a film called Dawson City Frozen Time. I don't know if people have seen it, not seen it. I think it's kind of an incredible film. It's almost too complicated and too time-consuming for me to tell you what it's about, but it's kind of about everything. So I would really recommend that. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention that I wanted to talk about. You know, I had this idea, you know, I woke up this morning and my wife said to me, well, what are you going to talk about? You know, I said, no pressure, I said. You know. And I really, you know, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to talk about in these, you know, the couple of minutes before I take questions. And I thought of, you know, what popped into my mind, and there's a couple of points to make together. There's a filmmaker named Idrissa Udriago, a filmmaker from a small country in Africa called Burkina Faso, died recently. The obit was in the New York Times a couple of days ago. And he was a guy I had an opportunity to meet and spend time with. I went to, there's a Pan-African Film Festival in his country, in Burkina Faso, in what's called FESPACO. It's in a city with a wonderful name, Ouagadougou. It's the capital of Burkina Faso. And I spent, you know, a week there, I'd say 10, 15, maybe probably 15 years ago at this point in time, and I remember talking to the kind of minister of culture in the government, talking about the festival, and he said something very simple, very obvious, but it just really struck me at the moment, and it's never left me, and it's the notion, you know, talk about why FESPACO exists, and he says, you know, people all over the world, people want to see themselves on film. You know, this is a drive that everyone has, and it's a good drive, and everyone should see themselves on film. And that's, you know, it's problematical for it doesn't always happen. And, you know, one reason I thought of it this morning is because of the great success that's happening right now with Black Panther, which is, you know, just an extraordinary film. And again, I want anyone who hasn't seen it, if you plan to see it soon. I know their lines, but every film, I was just talking to someone earlier this morning about Lady Bird, every film can be overhyped. No matter how good the film is, if all your friends tell you for a long time how good it is, by the time you see it, a little bit of the edge will be taken off of it. And so if, you know, I know it's crowded and crazy and setting records, but if you're interested in it, and you should be, you should go see it. And one of the things that really struck me about the film is that, the thing that's so wonderful about this film, in addition to the obvious things, is that it's a wonderful film. It's enormously entertaining. We all benefit by this, by having more inclusive stories, different kinds of stories, different groups heard from. It's not just that it's good for society. We as audiences benefit by having these wonderful stories that we had not heard before and had had a chance to see before. And we all know this, but when a film comes out that underlines that, as Black Panther does, it's just, there's a reason why it's just become so successful and everyone's talking about it. It really does that in spades. And that's really just a wonderful thing. So that's my plug for Black Panther. It doesn't need my help, obviously. It's doing just fine. One other thing I want to say about it, I've had a lot of people come up to me, and it's just a kind of a indicator of the kind of overhyped society we live in. I've had really several people come up to me and say, I've been reading the reviews, and is it really good? People are so used to everything being overhyped, and everything is the greatest, and this and that, and everything goes viral on social media, And so people really are very suspicious, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. But really, I think in this case, Black Panther really is that good. So I would encourage you to see it. It's not a typical Marvel movie. The other thing people say to me is I don't like Marvel movies, don't like superhero movies. This is really, it sounds like that's what it is, but it really isn't that at all. It's a different kind of a film, and I'm recommending it. So, and I think I'll stop there, and I think we can start with questions. Someone needs to bring around the microphone so we can hear people.
Bob, can you be the mic, dude?
There is a woman over here who had her hand up. Maybe we can start with her. Thank you.
Well, apropos of your comments on the reasons we should like the inclusion and so on and so forth, I was terribly disappointed and wonder why, or if you have any vision about why it happened that Marshall, the film Marshall, the young life of one of our Thurgood Marshall, one of our great Supreme Court justices, why it appeared in theaters for 2 or 3 days, and then it disappeared. And then this happened in Boston. This happened here, and we're trying to figure out why.
This is about a question about what happened to the film Marshall. Actually, the same, Chadwick Boseman, the same actor who stars in Black Panther, is the star of Marshall. I mean, I don't know, I think it probably played for a week. I don't think nothing plays for 2 or 3 days, but, people didn't go. Why people don't go is one of the great mysteries. People didn't go, and so the theater owners pulled it. I mean, I was a fan of the film. I really enjoyed it, but it just, nobody knows why people don't go. They don't go.
Yeah, a quick question about Shape of Water, which I really loved. Did you think that the military figures in Shape of Water were drawn too much like caricatures?
Well, that's an interesting question. Shape of Water, I think I'm a big fan of Shape of Water. I mean, one of the things about Shape of Water is that its roots are in genre. Its roots are in styles of movie making that are broader, and I think it's inevitable that it's going to be that way. This is not supposed to be a nuanced portrayal of the military. This is a good guys and bad guys movie. And that's just the way, that's its soil. And I think, it's kind of a marvelous plant that has grown out of it. But really, I think you're not going to have those people as being nuanced. That's not the kind of movie making this comes out of. And I think we just have to, accept that. I mean, it's not trying to be an accurate portrayal. It's trying to have it's good guys and bad guys. It's really Saturday matinee stuff, the guys with the white hats and the black hats, so that's that. Oops, where are we?
Thank you for coming. Could you say what you thought about Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour? I thought it was wonderful. How did you like it? And
Yeah,
will he get Best Actor?
Oh, Gary, I guess a question about Gary Oldman in Darkest Hour playing Winston Churchill. Yeah, I think I'm not a fan of the film particularly, but I love the performance. It's a wonderful performance. You know, Gary Oldman can do almost anything. I mean, I loved him in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy several years ago. He was a completely different kind of character. He does a great job. And, you know, I think there are times when the Oscar functions as kind of a lifetime achievement award. And I think that's functioning that way with Gary Oldman. I mean, it's not that it's as good a performance as the others, but the others are good too. But everyone thinks he will win because everyone kind of wants to celebrate the totality of his career.
Obviously, it's hard for us not to care about the Oscars, but I always wonder, should I care?
Oh, it's funny you should an existential question. It's funny you should ask me that because I'm literally in the process of writing a piece. We're going to do a pro and con in the paper about are the Oscars relevant? You know, should we care? Well, I mean, again, if you don't care about movies, the Oscars don't matter. That's a given. It's not like they're important on the stage of what's really a problem in the world. But they do but I think one reason to care this year is that the Academy, and it's visible in the nominations, and it'll probably visible in the winners, the Academy is acutely aware of its position, and the Academy has taken significant steps to change its membership and to make itself more relevant. I mean, they added like 1,600 new members in the last 2 years, again, with an eye towards being more inclusive worldwide in the United States. So the Academy is trying to become more relevant. And I think it is something that, I think sometimes we forget worldwide how much impact the Oscar has, and how it matters. I mean, this is a story that I'm going to put in my piece. Several years ago, I had the chance to do a Q&A with a great Polish director named Andrzej Wajda, W-A-G-D-A, and he's made enormously kind of heroic anti-films, during the communist era and post-communist era. He's a real kind of heroic world cinema figure. And he was in Los Angeles to get a special Oscar. And it meant an enormous amount. This is a guy who was just like, an Ingmar Bergman size director. And it meant an enormous amount to him to get an honorary Oscar. And he said that it had meant so much to the country that he was donating it to like the National Library, and they were going to put it in a display case next to Lech Wales's Nobel Peace Prize. So I mean, I think in some way, because the Oscars do have, they're here in Los Angeles and they cause traffic jams. We're kind of blasé about them, but I think they still do matter. I think there are reasons to care about them. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you felt that the Black Panther was significant because it underscores the importance of inclusivity. Do you think that this will be the beginning of more inclusivity? Do you think that this will tip in the right direction, or what?
It's inevitable that it will help. Whether it will make a significant difference long term, it's impossible to say. I mean, it's just impossible to know. Will it encourage Hollywood to do more things like this? Absolutely. Just like Wonder Woman did the same thing, in terms of, women as leading people, protagonists. How long-term these things are is impossible to say, but definitely it's as positive a thing as you could hope for, and you just have to hope that its impact is lasting. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your critic pieces in the LA Times. Appreciate it very much. Do you see a future for the Western genre going forward? And if so, how does it evolve to still be entertaining and of value for us?
You mean the Westerns, like?
Hostel.
What's that?
Hostels.
Hostel. Yes, no, I was a big fan of Hostel. I mean, I like Westerns. I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn watching Westerns. My father, who was an immigrant from Eastern Europe, he loved Westerns. Why he loved Westerns, I don't know. But he loved them. I mean, he'd never seen a horse, he'd never been in the West. But he loved to watch Westerns, so I would watch them on TV with him, and I just became a taste of mine. And, you know, there's still, there was another one, not only Hostel, there was The Ballad of Lefty Brown, was another good Western that came out this year. There was a film called Wind River, which is like a modern Western, which is quite good. You know, I mean, I think this taste is still there. I mean, people like Westerns. I mean, they ebb and flow in terms of whether everyone is turning out for them or not. But I think they're part of our culture. You know, again, you know, these things are very popular in the rest of the world. I mean, when I went to Monument Valley a few years ago, which is where all the John Ford Westerns were shot, almost all the tourists there were from Europe. There were very few American tourists there. You know, especially in Germany, it's a taste that has been around for 100 years. So I think they'll always be made, you know, there'll always a certain amount of people will go, and every once in a while one will break through. Hostel did not break through. I'd hoped it would, but people just did not seem. Again, it's like Marshall. I don't know why people didn't go. I would have thought this, you know, this film had played very well at Toronto with a lot of people that bid for it, and people thought great things would happen with it, and they didn't. You know, but I think the Westerns are staying around. I hope so.
Hi, thank you very much for coming. I saw a film on HBO or something called Get Out, and then I learned later that it's nominated for Academy Awards. I think it was so overrated. I thought it was well done, but not that caliber. What did you think?
That's an interesting question. When I first saw, I'm not, I mean, again, talk about genre with Shape of Water, you know, genre with Westerns. You know, this is a genre that I don't like horror films, and this is not that scary a horror film, but it's basically a horror film. You know, I have trouble sleeping at night. I get these weird visions. I don't like to watch horror films. So I was not an initial advocate of the film. You know, I saw it, I said, well, I don't really get it, but I mean, I've read a lot about it since, and I get it more now, you know, but it is something that people are really, you know, again, I think if the people who made it were told that they would be top contenders for Best Picture in the Oscars, they would have thought that, you know, that we were being delusional. But it's turned into that. It is a contender. It has struck a chord, especially with the industry. People really feel it says something significant and that it says it in an interesting way. So I'm just curious to see how it all plays out. But I mean, I had initial difficulties with it myself just because I don't like anything that's scary. I don't want to be scared.
Ken? Ken?
Yeah.
All of the Best Acting Awards seem almost preordained, if I can use that word. What do you, and I think you have, critics and the awards that have come already have pretty much named the four. Do you see any surprises in these four?
It's hard to know. You know, there are always surprises. I mean, the Academy is made up of people, and the Academy is also made up of people that, on a certain level, I feel this from time to time, all this prognosticating, all this of everyone saying, we're sure this person is going to win, I think there's you know, it's like the Academy's like rebellious teenagers. They say, well, yeah, that's what you think, you know. So I think there will be surprises. Who it will be, I don't know. I mean, one of the surprises, you know, this isn't even a surprise because she is kind of most people's second choice as to who will win. I'm hoping Laurie Metcalf wins Best Actress. I mean, I guess it's Best Supporting Actress. Yeah, I mean, the smart money, in quotes, is saying it'll be Allison Janney, but I'm hoping it's Laurie Metcalf because, I mean, I think all the performances are good. But again, you know, the Academy, again, but one of the things that's different is made the Academy less predictable is all these new members. I mean, things were nominated this year. I mean, really, 5 years ago, Get Out would not be a Best Picture nominee, you know. But it's just a younger audience that is just more attuned to genre, likes this kind of stuff. So there are changes, and that makes them less predictable. The reason they've been so predictable is that's the same people. You know, and you see patterns in voting, and you say, well, they're going to go with this. So there will be surprises. I don't know. I hope Laurie Metcalf is one, but other than that, I mean, if I knew what they'd be, they wouldn't be surprises, you know. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned diversity, and then you mentioned Wind River. So I'm going to be the designated Me Too question, because Wind River was diversity, one that's not even the black and white or Latino, it's Native American.
Yeah.
And it was a victim in some ways of the Me Too situation because it was a Weinstein and it lost all promotion.
Yeah.
The tribe tried to take over some of that because they helped pay for it, but it went. And can you make any other comments about anybody else being a victim or what Me Too will have an impact on anything else?
Well, I mean, it's been really a revolutionary moment. I mean, as someone who's a history major who's studied revolutions because they fascinate me. I mean, there's always collateral damage, and I think what happened to Wind River is collateral damage. It was not the film's fault that it was a Weinstein Company film. But I think we'll see this is still playing out. I don't know how. I mean, it's been a huge kind of tsunami in the industry, and we'll see what the ultimate effects are. I don't know. But I feel bad about Wind River because it's an exceptional film.
Last year, I'm over here.
Where?
I'm over here.
Oh.
Way over here. Hi.
Too many sides.
Last year you mentioned you're not liking violence. I want to know what you thought about the themes and messages of 3 Billboards this year.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, Martin McDonagh is just he's like his own country, I mean, he writes things that are just kind of fry your hair. I knew what to expect going in, and even knowing what to expect, I was kind of taken by surprise. I think it's a very powerful film. I don't think it's to everyone's taste. There are moments when I thought it wasn't to my taste, even as I was watching it. But I mean, the creativity, the way he writes, and I was talking to a screenwriter friend of mine because I had found a quote about him, and Martin McDonagh says, there's no improvising on my sets. He said, I spend years and years getting every word the way I want it, and the actors have to say it exactly as I wrote it, word for word. And my friend who's a screenwriter kind of went like this. Yes. But I mean, I think, it's been a while since I saw it, so I can't kind of give you, scene by scene analysis, but I think it's a very powerful film. I mean, again, Martin McDonagh has such command of the language. I mean, that's kind of what astonishes me, the dialogue, the way it's written, the way he got exactly what he wanted out of it. I don't know if I saw it again, what I would think about it, but it's a very impressive piece of work, whether you like it or not. This is not casual use of violence. This is really thought out. He's got ideas in mind, points he wants to make, whether you agree with the method or whether you say, well, didn't have to be this way. Also, I think it's I got into a discussion with an actor at Sundance about it, and he said, I'm from the South, and this is the South, this is not the way the South is. And it almost surprised me because I almost felt, well, this isn't the South. This is a country. This is the inside of Martin McDonagh's head. I never got the sense that this was supposed to be a real place, or the real American South. That this was a commentary, in that sense. This is just some world he created. This is almost some alternate universe, kind of like the Blade Runner universe that he created. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a very impressive piece of work. I liked it, but it still shook me up, so I'm not quite sure. If I saw it again, maybe I think I didn't like it. Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
I heard on the news on Friday that The Greatest Story Ever Told, the sequel, is going to be produced. I'm curious how you perceive the current conservative leanings on a part of our country could or would affect our theater going?
Well, I mean, one of the things that's happened, there is a whole movement of, and I'm trying to remember specifics and I can't, there are films that are made, there's a kind of a subset of the independent world of films that are made for believing audiences, and they do quite well. Whether, I don't know who's going to be making that. I don't know if it would be a major studio or if it would be one of these companies that. But I mean, there's an audience for these things, but who knows who comes out? I mean, again, there are all these good films that we've mentioned that seem like people would show up. So, I mean, just because a film is made doesn't mean that everyone's going to embrace it. So we'll just have to see.
Right here.
back there. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's always enlightening to have you here. Makes me want to go to the movies more.
Hold that thought.
Yeah, I will. I was late among my friends to see Call Me By Your Name, and I felt like before I'd seen it, I'd been watching a ping pong match, yes, no, about its strengths and weaknesses, its gifts and its blemishes. I'm really curious about your thoughts about that film.
No, I mean, again, I had a similar, I was late for a variety of reasons. I was late seeing that film as well. It played in a lot of film festivals before I got to it. I really liked the film. You know, again, I wasn't as blown away as the first people who saw it, because again, everyone was telling me how great it was, and when even someone in my position who's used to being overhyped, you can still get overhyped. But I was very impressed by the acting, by the direction, by the writing. You know, I was very moved by the film. You know, unfortunately, I knew too much about it going in. So that stopped me from being blown away and feeling that I had never seen anything like it, because I knew what I was going to see. But I think it's very impressive work. I think it was very moving, very emotional. You know, I like the performances a lot. Timothée Chalamet is, you know, Best Actor nominee, and deservedly so. I think it's quite an impressive piece of work. I really liked it. Oh, yeah.
You just mentioned you might change your mind if you saw 3 Billboards again. I wonder, with all the movies that you see, what would induce you to see a movie a second time? And, and how often you do that?
That's a good question. Well, I said if I saw it again. I didn't say when I see it again. There is not often time. You know, often it'll come years later. Maybe I'll be with someone who hasn't seen a film that wants to see it, and they'll say, you know, let's look at that. And I'll say, okay. Or sometimes friends will talk to me about it and say, you know, I know you don't like this, but think about it this way. And they'll say something that intrigued me. I mean, a film that, there was a film that Roman Polanski did called The Pianist, which I initially, first time I saw it, didn't really like it, and a friend of mine gave me an impassioned talk about it, and I looked at it again, and I felt differently. I could see what they were talking about. So sometimes if I have a spare time, you know, I'm very interested in film, and I'm always curious about reactions, because my reactions are what I do, and I'm always curious how other people react. So I'm curious sometimes. Did I miss something? You know, is there something I could have gotten out of it that I didn't see? And then I'm always curious, why did I not see that? What did I miss? So yeah, I mean, the whole process interests me, and that's why I would see it again.
Do you, over here?
Whoops.
Yeah. Do you have a short list of films that you, or actors that you wish had been nominated who were not?
Nominated that were not? I don't know. You know, it's hard. I'm so focused on, I think that most of the people that I think should have been nominated probably were. I mean, well, one thing, I would have nominated Jeremy Renner for Wind River. I thought that was a terrific performance, and, you know, again, it's genre. Genre doesn't always get the respect it deserves. It got caught in the Weinstein mess, which was not its fault, you know. I would have nominated him, definitely. Off the top of my head, you know, I focus so much on who is nominated, I don't give much thought. And again, it's so arbitrary that I'm used to things that I think are good being left out. So I don't have a list of Oscar grievances, you know. But it's a good question. Thank you. Okay.
My question's about Phantom Thread, what you thought about it, and also if you've heard whether marriage counselors have now laid in a supply of mushrooms.
Oh, that's a good. No one who hasn't seen the film will understand that line, but. Now, I enjoy Phantom Thread. I mean, it's a dark, strange movie that's impeccably made. You know, even as I saw it, I felt echoes of Rebecca, of Daphne du Maurier, and later I read that, in fact, Paul Thomas Anderson did have that in mind. It's beautifully made. It's beautifully acted. It's such a strange story that it kind of unnerved me a little bit. But I think it's, you know, it's beautifully, beautifully made. That's why it's gotten so many nominations, because everyone, you know, even though it wasn't a big box office success, but everyone in the Academy recognizes how beautiful the filmmaking is. So I appreciated that a lot. The woman who plays his wife is now in a new film called The Young Karl Marx. If you want to see her again, she's quite a good actress. But yeah, no, I mean, I liked Phantom Thread, but it just kind of, you know, it's a little bit of a strange story.
Yes. I have a question to a guy whose job it is to put a lot of imagery in his head. I mean, we get to choose, but you've got a responsibility to do this. And I know some of your imagery, some of the imagery is inspiring, but not all of it, like you spoke about horror movies.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what do you do with the garbage in your head? Where do you put it? And how do you live with it? I mean, 5 years, does any of this stuff ever come back and haunt you?
No.
Do you have any tips for us?
Well, I'm open to suggestions if you have. You know, it's an excellent question. I mean, all I can do is I try and cut down the stuff that I think will trouble me ahead of time. You know, like I won't see, no matter how good the director is, I won't see horror films. I won't see films that I think are going to be scary, because I know I will have a hard time getting rid of the images. Some people do not have that problem. It's nothing to do with being a critic, it's just who I am. You know, one of the good things about getting older is that you get forgetful, and I think, you know, I really think some of the worst images I've thankfully forgotten about. You know. But I wish I had an answer. For me, it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. Yeah.
Hi, I am at the risk of joining a kind of a very small group. I want to say I am from southern Missouri. I saw 3 billboards, and I knew it wasn't filmed in Missouri because where I grew up has been ruined by people coming in and building big houses and so forth. But this was home to me, and the people behaved like the people I knew. And I think there's some very positive things in there besides the violence. For example, there's a community. These people all know each other. So when she tells the man, you know, I'm the one that set the fire, he says, who else? I mean, they know what they would do. And it's not necessarily that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I found it very believable and very realistic and very much like where I grew up many, 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 many years ago.
Well, good. No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm always, you know, I always tell I teach film reviewing, and I always tell my students specific knowledge is a wonderful thing, you know. So I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you.
Ken, I almost never do this over here.
Where are you?
Down here, over here.
Oh my God.
But I wanted to leap ahead, and A Wrinkle in Time is coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
It was something I preached about this morning because the book was so paradigmatic in my life. I'm curious if you've seen it, or if you have any thoughts or feelings about it, and if not, what we can look forward to here and later.
No, I mean, I have not seen it yet. Disney has been a little slow in screening it. You know, I mean, again, these things are big, enormous, as you can see with Black Panther. When they succeed, these things earn billions of dollars around the world. Billions, you know, and they lead to sometimes to theme parks, as happened with Harry Potter. So they're very, very careful about these things. So they tinker with these things, and they have not screened it yet, you know. But I mean, you know, it's Ava DuVernay, who's a wonderful director, and everyone is very, you know, we're all excited to see it, hopeful about it. But it's a beloved book, as you say, you know. But I don't know, you know, no one's seen it yet.
You haven't seen it, no. Right. Hi, I'm here.
Okay, yes, it's a good idea to raise your hands.
Okay. As moviegoers, obviously, we can make the choice about what movies we want to see, and we can decide that certain filmmakers and actors, because of their personal lives, are people that we don't want to support. You can't do the same thing. You probably have to try to judge artistic merits, you know, in a vacuum of the filmmaker's own perspectives personally. But how hard is it for you to do that? Do you bring, you know, obviously you can see James Franco and The Disaster Artist and judge it independently, and now that film is being judged in society because of what he's accused of. But how do you, as a critic, do that?
It's just an article of belief in me that you have to judge these things on their own merits. I can't be thinking about what kind of a person this is who made it. I mean, first of all, as we've come to find out, there's all kinds of terrible people who we don't know about who are doing things. You know, I mean, I think it just feels like a slippery slope to me. I don't like, you know, we're all free, as you say. If we don't like a person, we're free not to go to their films. That's certainly perfectly legitimate. But in terms of judging the quality of them, I just think you have to judge what you see on the screen. If you let other things come in, it just doesn't feel right to me, you know? And, you know, and I've had situations where I've gotten into kerfuffles with actors, and they, you know, and I was worried that it would, you know, impact what I felt when I saw them on the screen again, and it doesn't, you know. The screen just takes me over. I just focus on what's there, and there really is not room in my mind for the kind of person they are, or even what they may have done to me personally.
Thank you. Don't count mine as two, but I have two questions. Choose the one you want. I've seen two films. Well, I've seen a lot of films, but I saw The Square recently, and I think it's up for Best Foreign Film.
It is. And
it blew me away. I thought it was amazing. And the other one that I'd like to ask your opinion of is the Clint Eastwood 1517 to Paris, where most of the actors are the actual participants.
Yeah.
What did you think of?
Well, I mean, The Square is, you know, there's some exceptional parts to The Square. I think The Square is too long. I think The Square, that director's previous film was a film called Force Majeure, which I thought was an exceptional film, and because it did so well, they kind of gave him carte blanche with The Square, and it just is too long. You know, for my money, it's too long. The Clint Eastwood film, you know, you know, it's about these, as you say, the people who stopped a terrorism attack on a French train, and it's played by the real people. They have been unable to find a film there. I mean, I think for most people, I've heard from some people who really enjoy it, but it's not dramatic. You know, the scenes of the actual stopping of the terrorism attack are terrific, but there's a whole nother hour and 10 minutes, and they have not found a way to make that involving for most people. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hi. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Quickly, shifting gears just slightly, in the wake of the Harvey Weinstein scandals and the Me Too movement, Hollywood has traditionally represented a certain liberal moral voice. I'm wondering if there is a sense of new voices emerging, alignment, or what's going on there, and what should we look forward to in terms of the figures we come to trust to represent that voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think obviously the Me Too movement has had a catastrophic, not catastrophic, it's had a cataclysmic impact on Hollywood. And I think it has freed people to write more and to do kinds of films that they would not have thought of before. But again, the movie business it's like, I always think of it's like a big ocean, it's like a tanker. You know, it just changes direction very slowly. And I think it'll be a while till we see the results of that. But I have no doubt that it's shaken things up and that some things will, you know, I don't believe that everything will be different, but some things will be different, and I think, you know, it can't help but have positive effects.
Can we just give her a thank